Greetings, unsettled souls. Guess what? It's time for the correct views. Not just that, but it's time for what, you know what time it is. It's time for the Dunce Cap of the Month show. And there's going to be two Dunce Caps given here because I'm a little bit behind. They are being sent. As a matter of fact, Doug Tout, zoom in, I promised I would show. There is the receipt. He paid for it. He paid for the Dunce Caps to get sent. It all costs money, friends. And this is listener supported. The money you give to me, I give towards a better show. And today, we have one hell of a show. How do you donate, by the way? Simple. Go to the CoRReCt at hotmail.com. Donate through PayPal. Put the money towards the kind of craziness you're going to get here. For those of you that don't know, the Dunce Cap of the Month is something I like to do every month where I find the most ridiculous stories, often from our leaders, but not always. The most ridiculous stories. And I bring them to you so that you can see and hear the stupidity that is all around us. And today, friends, I'll tell you, there are some real dummies. Some of these go back a little bit because I've been meaning to get to them and was not able to. So I'm going to zip through those. Opossum breaks into a liquor store and gets drunk as a skunk. Now, this one, nobody really could get the Dundee for this, but the story itself was so strange, I'm only going to spend a second on it. I felt like it should be included. The animal wasn't playing possum in a Florida liquor store. It was truly drunk. It snuck into Cash's liquor store in Fort Walton Beach the day after Thanksgiving and apparently helped itself to some alcohol from the Northwest Florida Daily News, tells it there. They reported that Michelle Pettis, a wildlife health technician at the Emerald Coast Wildlife Refuge, said the juvenile possum was female and was brought to the Fort Walton police officer on November 24th. It was found next to a shelf with a cracked open liquor bottle with nothing in it. Assuming the possum drank it all, he brought her to us and looked over, and she was definitely acting normal. So I guess it wore off. They gave it many fluids and sent it on its way. It gets stranger. How about this? This is from the Mirror. Freakish ex-soldier who injects himself with homemade muscle bulking brew faces having his bazooka arms falling off. Now, there are those that don't like to work out. I get it. I really do. I get it. And there are those who do that where they bulk up and they inject themselves full of God only knows what, and it costs a fortune to make it look like they were big. That is also very common. What this idiot did, Krell Terrence, 21, is much more bizarre. He has huge Popeye biceps, but concerns have been raised that he posted on his Instagram that his bazooka arms are about to fall off, and he's not going to stop. That's what's most messed up. He's using a toxic vegetable oil combination for this. Just listen. He was branded a freak after injecting himself with a homemade muscle building brew, and he has been warned that he faces amputation with his arms. He's a Russian national, and he has gained notoriety for his Popeye-style biceps after using chemicals to bulk up his muscles, but now he's worried they're falling off. Despite disturbing images that show his biceps with a red and purple discoloring, he plans to continue injecting himself with this homemade potion. Now, all of that discoloration is basically his arms rotting away. That's what that is. That is not a bruising. That is rotting. Again, trying to cut corners, not wanting to lift weight. It says the Popeye arms were created by injecting dangerous chemicals into his muscles. The brew is synthol. It's made from olive oil, lidocaine, and benzyl alcohol for those of you that would like to make some of your own and have your arms fall off too. Russian media have reportedly accused him of trying to become a freak as he tries to chase Instagram glory. It's like the Tide Pod eaters here. Krill has previously been warned about paralysis, but now a top medic said that the threat is even greater. Worse than being paralyzed, I guess. Clearly a real winner there. His doctor is Yevgeny Lilin and said it's not immediately, but he likely faces amputation in the future. One day abscesses will develop, then inflammation, and he will be at risk of a stroke. That's what we see from people that use CoRReCt in Russia as well, the heroin substitute. The bad thing is that already injected synthol or its equivalent will remain in the muscles for the next 5 to 7 years, even if he stops doing it now. Look at those arms. He's in deep trouble for his stupidity here. He is said to have already injected himself with 6 liters of the dangerous liquid, and it has increased his biceps to 23 inches. He has made it clear that he plans to stop at 27 inches, and he wants to do the same thing. He calls it improving his back, chest, and shoulders. Oh, right near the heart. That's a good idea. He wants more than 1 million subscribers on Instagram, and he's said he's interested in trying to become a porn star. Yeah, because we all want porn stars with no arms. Inside of the arms of this man are already pathologically changed tissues. It looks like jelly with insertions. They are aseptic or inflammatory. So far, they are abscesses. They consist of either oil or blood from damaged vessels, and they cannot be moved. For a while, he was doing injections every day with a 20-meter syringe, and he said if he had used the synthol, the real stuff, it would have cost about 400,000 rubles. This only cost 4,000 rubles, and he said he doesn't feel any discomfort in his arms when he's doing it. He's got 106,000 subscribers. Friends, that's the kind of stupidity that you just don't see every day. I'll be honest, you just don't see it every day. And it gets worse. They get progressively worse all the way up to the big dumdy, friends. If you're still with me, make sure you type in the comment line, I'm still with you. How many of you are staying with me? How many of you want to hear just how stupid people can get? Well, we're going to go ahead and show you. This is from Yahoo News. Wisconsin man fleeing police crashed while checking his cell phone. This is something that Christelle might have done, I have to admit. Milwaukee prosecutors say a man who led police on a high-speed chase told the arresting officers that he crashed his minivan because he became distracted checking his cell phone for directions. A nice getaway plan there. Told you it was the dunce cap of the month. The Milwaukee District Attorney's Office said in a criminal complaint released Friday that the 20-year-old Logan Michael Brandenburg made the comment unsolicited while he was being transported from the hospital to the county jail. His fight-or-flight mentality kicked in, and the West Allis police officer attempted to pull him over. Instead, he just plunged into an embankment, and now he faces charges of, you guessed it, 2 felonies. Also from Yahoo News, topless feminine activist tries to snatch Jesus from the Vatican crib. Now, this was sent to me by a listener, and I had to get to it, even though it's a bit dated. It's from Christmas. A topless activist from the feminist group Femin tried to snatch a statue of the baby Jesus from the nativity scene at St. Peter's Square on Monday. It was stopped as police as she grabbed it. A Reuters photographer said the woman jumped over the guardrails and rushed onto the larger-than-life nativity scene, shouting, "God is a woman." She had the same slogan painted on her back. Now, what's interesting here is that over and over again, the Bible is very clear that God is a man. Now, he certainly does not flaunt that or care one way or the other, and he's probably not a man in the way that you and I would think of it. But just the same, I think it's interesting that we live in a world where it never fails to find some new way to slander God in all things Christian. The Vatican gendarmes stopped her from taking the statue, and she was detained. It was about 2 hours before the Pope gave his Christmas message. You all know I'm not a huge fan of the poem, but that Femin, they really are something else. They tried this in 2014 and were arrested likewise for that. Moving on, best laid plans fail as the LA police net felon after brazen idiotic act. And once you look at that, this one is written by me. I knew as soon as I wrote it, I was going to have to put this on the Dunce Cap of the Month show. We are hardly into 2018, and already I wrote, even though it is only the 3rd of January when I wrote this, the candidate for dumbest criminal of the year has been found. As a matter of fact, there are so many dunce cap-worthy offenses racked onto Miss Cheng Li in California that it's hard to pinpoint them all. To begin with, as MSN reports, the Reading resident is behind bars after allegedly illegally parking next to 2 uninformed police officers, then asking them how to get to the site of a planned drug deal. He was driving a black SUV, parked the vehicle on a red curbed fire lane. So, one, you've got the illegal parking, and then began to ask for directions. The 40-year-old then strolled right up, it says, to the officers who were sitting inside of their cars and asked for directions to a mobile home, 2 streets that don't intersect. So he didn't even know where he was going. There were 2 streets that went in the same direction. They never crossed one another, and he asked how to get there when they crossed. Never hearing of GPS, I wrote clearly, which is on most phones these days, he managed to arouse the suspicions of the officers in question. They asked to search his car, which is their right, and he foolishly allowed them to do so, likely not knowing his rights. Now, I don't know how many of you know this, but I go to a side story here because this is why you tune in. This will save you a fortune someday if you listen to me. I was pulled over and I refused to allow the police to check my car. I refused. Well, in Sandusky, they said, we can get dogs and make it mandatory that we do this. I still refused. I said that I do not consent to any searches or seizures, and I instructed my wife to do the exact same thing. You know what? They drove away without checking my car. Didn't even have any dogs on duty. So if a cop asks to check your car, he's allowed to do so, but you don't have to let him do it. Guy went and looked through his car, and they found half a pound of weed. Also found a loaded gun. And since he's a felon, that's going to get him as well. Officers, even after that, asked to check his cell phone, and would you believe he was dumb enough to allow them to do so? He openly let the officers read it, and of course it showed that he was going to show up to buy drugs. And the person he was going to buy drugs from now got busted as well due to his stupidity. Hey, how many of you listening to this would like to advertise? If you would, get a hold of me at the CoRReCt at hotmail.com because I'll get you a nice rate, and this is what somebody would be listening to. Your ad, right here. Friends, this is from Fox News. Teenager broke into a Texas home, watched the mom and daughter sleep, and left behind a stain. What a man. Look at him. What a piece of work there, Mr. Terrell Morgan, 17. Broke into a Texas home and undressed and watched the mother and young daughter sleep for a half hour during a frightening episode on New Year's Day, police said. Again, this is for the last 2 months, this here DUNCE capital month. Months, as it is. Officer said the man left behind a mysterious stain on the woman's bed. Yeah, I bet it was pretty mysterious. He was arrested on burglary charges and allegedly broke into the Spring home through a window, the Montgomery County Sheriff's Office said on Facebook. They said the teen attempted to enter the home by trying to open several doors and windows around the house before ultimately breaking in through a guest room window. He was spotted on surveillance video walking around the house before entering the bedroom of the 7-year-old's daughter, so it gets even creepier. Yuck. The 7-year-old girl was not sleeping in the bedroom at the time and was actually with her mother in the master bedroom. The man identified as Morgan was seen walking into the master bedroom. He stayed there for about a half hour. And he leaves the room, his pants are off, and he's wearing a dress partially pulled up to his knees. What a piece of work. Child molester, mother, would-be rapist, dress wearing, stain leaving mofo. Tried to say that twice. The homeowner told deputies that the stain was found on the bed when she woke up, and it was not there when she went to sleep. And it's not the first time this man had entered the home. He broke in on November 24th as well. He left fingerprints on a water bottle, and it had matched a previous arrest, and he's in jail on $250,000 bond, friends. Going on with Fox News for some more weirdos for our dunce cap of the month here. Alabama man accused of sexually molesting a horse. Oh, Wilbur, you wouldn't believe what they did to me, Wilbur. Oh. I wrote this for the Post too, but I'm going to go ahead with Fox's, so I don't feel like calling mine up right now. An Alabama man was accused of repeatedly molesting a horse. After his owner believed she found evidence of the crimes left behind in the stall, it was Danielle Bennett, 18, of Irvington, is awaiting trial after allegedly told the Mobile County Sheriff's Office investigators that he attempted to molest the horse. Now, I'll tell you what, I'm going to send a free gift to anybody that looks up my article on the Conservative Daily Post about the horse guy. I'll tell you right now, you look it up, and I'll send you something free. What are teens doing today? Breaking into houses, watching parents sleep with their 17-year-olds, eating Tide Pods, and molesting horses? What the hell? She found him in the barn when the dog started barking. It was a 20-year-old steed that he was trying to molest, according to WPMI. Francine James and her husband showed up with a gun and kept him in the stall until police arrived. And then they found him in his trench coat, a burglar's tool. And she believes that there have been evidence, probably more mysterious stains, in Polly's stall multiple times throughout December. So he'd been giving the horse many Christmas gifts during the entire month. Maybe 7 to 10 times, Jane said. Toilet paper had been left. The haystacks had been removed and items had been turned over. Yeah, because he was climbing up behind the horse. That's what that means. Bennett's arrest lists his crime as bestiality. It's a misdemeanor, and he was engaged in or submitted to any sexual contact with an animal. In this case, the horse. Now, guys, we only got two more to get to before we get to the big winners. And we're getting onto some serious stupidity here. Man declared dead snores the night before his autopsy. Now, this kind of thing used to happen quite a bit a long time ago. I understand that. But in our age of science, you don't really see that much of this anymore. It's not like the serpent and the rainbow or something, for those of you that have seen that. Well, I guess it does still happen. People used to be buried with alarms that they could sound from their coffin. There's even an Abner story dealing with that, a good old black and white. And it's funny. This instance was not as funny. A man in Spain who had been declared dead by no less than 3 doctors, uno, dos, tres, was actually still alive, which doctors discovered only when he began snoring on the autopsy table. Otherwise, they'd have been cut up like the Easter ham. The man, 29-year-old Gonzalo Montoya Jimenez, was a prisoner at the jail in northern Spain. He was found unconscious in his cell on Sunday and was believed to have been dead. 4 hours later, the night before his autopsy, he'd been heard making noises on the autopsy table, and he was still alive. He already had the marks painted on him to guide the autopsy, the blades. How did this happen? Just something like this, we don't know. Determining whether someone is dead or alive might sound simple enough, but there are not universal guidelines for exactly when doctors should pronounce someone dead. You're dead when the doctor says you're dead, said Dr. James Burnett, a neurologist at Dartmouth College Giselle School of Medicine in New Hampshire. Broadly speaking, a person may be declared dead when 1 or 2 things happen. The heart stops and doesn't start again, or they are brain dead. A person is considered brain dead when he or she no longer has any neurological activity from the brain or the stem, meaning no electrical impulses are being set. Doctors perform a number of tests to determine whether the brain is dead, but in this case, clearly that wasn't the case. The man had suffered from epilepsy, so they should have known to check for a trance-like state called catalepsy, but they didn't. This also happened in 2014. A 91-year-old woman in Poland was declared dead and spent 11 hours in the mortuary before being discovered alive and moving in her body bag. I bet she was thrilled. Friends, I also wrote this one. Hilarious irony overtakes rap artist as courtroom issues a 3-year sentence. Now, this is great. I almost gave this one the Dunce Cap of the Month award because we all know that rappers, by and large, can be some of the dumbest people that have ever lived. And I do some raps. That's not really, I don't mean the genre. I don't mean the art form. I mean hip-hop culture is what I mean. I mean the idiots on the radio, or Orion, T-Pain, T.I., Lil Wayne, anybody like that has no talent whatsoever is what I mean. I don't mean real artists like Steve Grant or something, but I digress. Most libertarians and those who have studied the Constitution, I wrote, have found that the government has very little right to conduct the war on drugs as they have. But until this is addressed, the laws are what they are. This means that it's best to not sell drugs. But if one is trying to remain free, if a person does decide to engage in the practice, it may be wise to not write songs advertising what one is doing. Yahoo News reports 30-year-old Michael Prasad all but invited police to his side to arrest him by writing songs like Sell Drugs with an S and a Z and other such ditties. Yeah, you can tell he's brilliant. All that's going to do is make it harder to find the single. What a dope. His choice of song titles has helped lead his recent 3-year prison sentence for doing just that, selling illegal drugs. Sometimes I wrote the irony, it just hurts. It seems that in many cases, those that dive into certain rap cultures begin to feel immune from the law. Many flash gang signs, guns, and other actions that would make it all but impossible for law enforcement to not act. There he is. What a genius. Prasad, whose stage name is Montana Mills, was lucky to get 3 years considering that he was dealing deadly heroin and fentanyl. His lawyer, Matt Smith, calls the outcome fair and just. His client had been looking at 6 years. It's hard to say if the drugs he peddled did cost anyone their lives or not, and an East Independence undercover detective purchased nearly 3/4 of an ounce, 22 grams of fentanyl, and a small amount of heroin from the rapper over a 4-month period in October. The entertainer's woes are far from over. He faces additional problems for selling drugs in Lebanon County, PA. A jury has already convicted him there on drug charges, and it seems that he may have a much better chance of succeeding in the music world if he could stay out of prison. For that to happen, he may wish to consult others before naming his next single, I wrote. And you guys know me. I'm pretty libertarian. I don't think that the government has any right to be involved in what other people choose to do to their body. And people know I'm very adamant about that. I'm not in favor of that kind of thing being policed at all. But since it is being done, some people are just plain out stupid about the way they go about pursuing liberty. I'll put it that way. Friends, we have 2 more, and that means it's time for the Dunce Cap of the Month winners. Oh, yes, there's the Dundee music. Let it play for a minute. Oh, isn't it beautiful? Oh, yes. Remember, friends, this is listener supported, so if you donate to the CoRReCt at hotmail.com, I can make sure that I give you a better show, more shows like this more often with better equipment, which would be a godsend. Friends, Tom Udall compared a video of President Trump terrorist propaganda on social media to the Senate committee Wednesday hearing dealing with extremists. And confusing wrestling with real life is bad enough. But I thought it was much worse. Let me call the actual award up here. I thought it was much worse what I saw coming out of Chicago. I mean, sometimes you just can't help but to laugh at these things. But let me go ahead. We know about the Molly Stark Center in Chicago. Well, let's look at this genius here. Come on, call up. Dunce Cap of the Month award going to Harper Collins. The wonderful Harper Collins there. The Dunce Cap of the Month, President CEO Brian Murray, for being so easily misguided that he would push the gay lifestyle on children who are not old enough to decide for themselves who they are yet. Not only that, but the fact that the historic Christian saint, St. Nick, was used to push the via Harper Collins, one of the most short-sighted companies to ever publish a book of any kind, for not understanding that there comes a time when facts should trump an agenda based on a flawed PC mindset. You win the Dunce Cap of the Month award. Better luck next. Learn some history in context next time, I wrote. That is one of them. I have to make the cap for that, and you will be seeing that when I do the next month's show. But this will be mailed immediately. How about picking somebody for ethics? Oh, right, you guys, I didn't hit screen share on that. You guys didn't get to see this, unfortunately. Let me fix that. There you go. Yeah, there's his. Now here's the other one. How many of you heard about William and Mary College giving an ethics honorary Somebody with no ethics. Oh, you think I'm kidding? I'm not kidding. Look at this. If a blind man was given the keys to a car and told to give a driving lesson, it would make very little sense to anyone reading this. Even fewer would sign up for the course, and virtually no one would suggest that there was any logic to it. However, the event that such a thing would happen, it would certainly make a lot more sense than what is being reported today regarding disgraced former FBI Director James Comey. Comey is joining the faculty at the alma mater college in William and Mary and plans to teach a course on ethical leadership at Williams Washington Sterling and this coming fall. Makes about as much sense as having former President Bill Clinton preaching a sermon on the importance of sexual purity. I wrote, for Comey is one of the most unethical men to ever step foot into the FBI. How a man who was fired by a sitting president and non-tenured position as an executive professional in education is a testimony to how far the nation has fallen. How can a man so devoid of ethics be part of a class where ethics is the topic? I am thrilled to have the chance to engage William and Mary students about a vital topic of ethical leadership, Comey said in a statement. He should be equally thrilled that he is not in prison for what he did and how he decided not to charge Mrs. Clinton before he ever spoke to her. His own memos convey that this happened. Ethical leaders lead by seeing above the short term, above the urgent or the partisan, and with a higher loyalty to lasting values, most importantly, the truth. Building and maintaining that kind of leadership in both the private sector and government is a challenge for our time, and there is no better place to learn this from than W&M Washington program, he added. How lightning did not come down to strike him down remains a mystery, I wrote. These words are coming from a man who President Trump said lost the confidence of everyone in Washington, D.C., Republican and Democrat alike. If there is any logic still in our colleges, perhaps he will be treated as he was at Howard University, where chants of "Get out, James" were heard. Go, James Comey, you're not a homie, were being shouted as he tried to speak. In a nauseating statement, the college's president, Tyler Revley, who's getting the Dunce Cap of the Month that you're going to see here, said in the statement of his own that over the years, he has been deeply committed to his alma mater. He understands the core of being that the leaders must have an abiding commitment to ethical behavior and sacrificial service. If we have a good government, our students will benefit significantly from the experience and wisdom. Well, so much for Revley's credibility, I wrote. In closing, the fact is that there's very little moral worth in James Comey at all. For him to be teaching this class is something that future generations will mock our current time period for. Then again, there will be so much to mock that they may never get that far down the list. And I'm now going to show you what I am sending them. I'm going to just go through the images and I'll let you know what each one says here as they go. All right, this little green guy here says, how did one who was all ready to clear Mrs. Clinton before he spoke to her chosen? Dude in the orange here says, how can a man devoid of ethics be chosen? This very angered lady here said, the college has lost all credibility. And this very Hillary Clinton-looking creature here says, how did a man who made the FBI political get picked? Now, many people will find this to be a pretty prudent question. Well, how does someone get to teach ethics when they have proven that they have no ethics? This isn't something in school, I think, that is just in a random class that doesn't matter. This is supposed to be showing generations that normalcy and decency mean something in politics. And I hate to be the one to tell you, but this is not exactly the way that that lesson gets taught. And I think there's a lot of people who would be quite surprised to learn that. I'm going to go ahead and show you guys this. I'm going to go ahead and get this sent out. I might send this one instead of the one that I showed you. I'm going to read you the Dunce Cap Award for it real quick. It's for the Molly Center. I think this is better than the Gay Santa. The Dunce Cap, let me go to screen share. Then I'm going to log off here for everyone. The Dunce Cap of the Month goes to, again, it's 2 months this month. January, February, to the doltish people at Chicago's Molly Center. Only a mindless, thoughtless group such as yours would move to stop Greg Schiller from housing the homeless during relentless, unforgiving ice storms. While his home may not meet your overly restrictive mandates, you could spend a bit of time reading the Constitution and seeing that those who are homeless should be 100% free to make their own decisions when it comes to sleeping arrangements and their risks. It is not up to anyone in the government to decide that. Now, what happened was, for those of you that don't know, the city told a man that he could not have slumber parties for the homeless to prevent them from freezing to death, because they should stay at the shelter, which of course was full and people froze to death. So I made this cap. This will be going to them once again, same way. I'll loop around and let you see. There's a snowman with freezing, shivering letters saying, I didn't used to be a snowman. I froze thanks to city codes. There's a tombstone, R.I.P. Homeless Joe. And it says, the odds of this are far higher than a fire at Greg Schiller's house, which is the man who is being a good Samaritan. Of course, no slumber parties. And then this little orange gentleman here said, but slumber parties are okay. Friends, you've been listening to the Correct Views. That's the Dunce Cap of the Month Award. And I thank you for listening. Please hit share. Please hit subscribe. Please donate it to correctviews@hotmail.com. Good night, friends. God bless.